Hello, good evening. We're in studio tonight, and you're still up, so why not stay up? Packers, Bucks, all kinds of good stuff straight ahead. This is the FOX6 Sports Blitz. You see Brandon Cruz. I'm Tim Van Voren. This is Lily Zhao. We appreciate you being along, and here's our starting lineup. We recap a very busy week in the sports world. The Bucks fire Adrian Griffin. They have Joe Prunty coach for a while, and then they introduce Doc Rivers as the permanent head coach. Also, some moving parts for the Packers following the close of their season. Giannis with an out-of-body experience in Say What. Brewers at a piece in Reese. And we finish up with our high school hotshot.
Listen, I've never done this. I wouldn't wish this on anyone. I can tell you that just from the day and a half. But it's going to be a challenge. It's a challenge that I'm running towards. Got to get organized quickly. Can't try to do too much too soon. We're in the middle of a season, so we got to try to keep our rhythm. There are changes that we have to make. There's no doubt about that. And we'll start working on it immediately.
Doc Rivers, a local basketball legend from his days going all the way back to Marquette, now the new coach of the Milwaukee Bucks, and he's already saying we. So he's on this, Brandon. You were at the introductory press conference. What are your takeaways, and what type of change can we see?
I think that it's going to be gradual, whatever it is. And I think, first and foremost, it'll happen on the defensive side of the ball for this team because he clearly sees that's where this team has struggled. They haven't been consistent there. He even talked about seeing it from above on Friday night, that this wasn't an organized unit back there. So to me, that's where it's going to be. We also might see a couple changes along his coaching staff. I don't think it's going to be anything dramatic at this point. He's bringing a couple of guys in that will help, but I think that's what it's going to happen. And I bet you we don't see anything extremely noticeable until a week or two after the All-Star break ends, because he won't have any time to do it. They don't have time to practice. He gets right on the court tomorrow with this team against the world champion Nuggets. So to me, it's going to be very gradual, slow coming, but it will be something we see come March.
We're watching some highlights here, Lily. Those aren't Bucks highlights. Those are against the Bucks. A lot has happened in this week, including starting at the beginning of the week with the dismissal after only 43 games of Adrian Griffin. Can you imagine a week with so much packed in for the Bucks? And as you go back to the start of it, what do you think of that decision to get this ball rolling?
Right. I do think it was surprising that 43 games in, they were able to fire their head coach, Adrian Griffin, first-time head coach, who had been waiting for a head coaching opportunity for 15-plus years and loses it in just 4 months on the job. But I think it came down to this for the Bucks front office, right? When they brought in Adrian Griffin, he's thinking he's coaching a team that has a Drew Holiday on it, that has other guys that have since moved on in a trade for Damian Lillard. So they bring in Adrian Griffin, all that happens, and then you have Damian Lillard and Giannis, another good opportunity for a first-year head coach. He said he was very honored for that chance to kind of build a foundation with his team, but I think as things got along, nothing really looked that great. I think when you're looking on the outside in, you see 30-13, second in the Eastern Conference. When you're watching the games, though, the Bucks don't look like what we expect the Bucks to look like. So in order for John Horst and company to quote-unquote maximize their championship window, they said goodbye to Adrian Griffin, and they were looking for a more experienced coach, and they got one in Doc Rivers. So that's kind of what went down in terms of their decision, I think, to let go of Adrian Griffin. But I think they had Doc sort of in mind to kind of get this thing going, because it really was a very quick process from beginning of the week to now the end.
And I think Adrian Griffin will be able to hold his head high. He has a pretty good record on his resume. He moves out. He's had this opportunity. He will stay in basketball, would be my guess. And he gets a soft cushion on the way out. I'm going to ask both of you, because the players have talked about understanding this is a now-type decision. Lily, you first. How much did the player window roster, how much did that force this?
I think it forced it a lot because, again, Doc Rivers certainly has experience coaching superstar tandems. We've seen him do it in Philly, so he has experience doing that with Joel Embiid and James Harden. Now he gets that with Giannis and Dame. But again, he just is an experienced head coach, 24, 25 years of coaching experience. He's kind of been through it all. I know the knocks are coming with him in terms of postseason wins, and can he do that and guide this team there? But I think in terms of maximizing that championship window, they wanted a coach that had experience. Doc Rivers has the pedigree. He knows how to handle superstar duos, and he's been through the ringer before. He's done this before, and of course he has Milwaukee ties. So it all made sense in bringing Doc in.
So was it ill-fated? Is this because of the now type situation?
It was. They saw the writing on the wall. They saw this team wasn't in a position to succeed in the playoffs. They couldn't make key stops on the defensive side of the ball consistently down throughout the game. So you get into a tight series, and if you can't make stops, you're losing in the postseason, hands down. That doesn't happen, you don't find success if you can't make defensive stops in the playoffs. So that is their biggest remedy that they have to have with Doc Rivers here. But the question is he going to be able to overcome the situations he's had and the criticisms he's faced, maybe rightfully so, of not being able to get his teams into the championship? Yes, he wins the championship in Boston in 2008, but most of his teams are bounced before the semifinals of their conference. So it's kind of like, is this Mike Budenholzer all over again? Because remember, that was their whole reasoning for firing Budenholzer. He couldn't get over the hump despite winning a championship in 2021. Doc hasn't won a championship since 2008. Can he get over the hump? And that's what we're going to have to see with this roster. But as Lily pointed out, he has a history of working with big stars. He did it in Boston. He also did it in L.A. and in Philadelphia.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And the Bucs are paying big money to coaches. My goodness, you're talking about Mike Budenholzer, now Adrian Griffin, and now Doc Rivers. And this is not a half-season contract. This is a multi-year contract. So as the calendar flips to February here, Brandon, is your Bucs glass half full, half empty? What?
It's half full. I think what this does is this kind of lights fire under the players. I think this shifts some of the responsibility now to them. They can't blame a rookie coach, or they can't blame the fact that communication is a problem anymore, because they do have a guy that's a proven NBA head coach that clearly has shown he is a character guy that also commands respect in that locker room. Not that Adrian Griffin wasn't respected, but now you have Doc coming in after 24 years as an NBA head coach, as a player who was also an all-star. They're going to buy in to what he has to say, and they know that they can't use another excuse. This is now on them.
Interesting take, no question about it. Lots to watch with Doc Rivers, the Doc Denver debut coming up on Monday night for the Bucs. It is halftime of the first segment of the Fox 6 Sports Blitz. Insta-poll question time. You can go to the QR code on the screen, or you can go to fox6now.com. Quite simply, will Doc Rivers lead the Bucs to an NBA championship? Right now, 100% of you saying no. Interesting to see if that number will change as our show goes along here this evening.
There's always going to be moments of struggle, but how can we be a little bit more consistent, kind of looking at what we do well, how can we best put our players in position to have success, and that's going to be part of this next process.
Matt LaFleur with some coach speak for every football situation there, but he's specifically talking about this Packers defense, which now has a new leader. The last game they played, of course, was against the San Francisco 49ers, who are now Super Bowl bound. And Lily, you were there for that. Turned out to be Joe Barry's final game as the defensive coordinator. The move is made on him, and the search is on for his replacement.
Exactly. I think the writing was kind of on the walls. I know last season, Joe Barry was on the hot seat. Matt LaFleur decides to bring him back. And while I think he was kind of trying to prove that the defensive scheme would work per se, it just never really kind of became the best defense that I think this team wanted it to be. Again, 8 first-round picks on the defensive side of the football, and there was a period of time where they were kind of helping this young offense grow along, and they were helping them kind of stay in games, but there was a bad stretch in the middle there, and then, of course, I think that last drive in the divisional round, I think all those guys wanted that last drive back. But when you look at Joe Barry, though, you're talking about, the issues on third down, the run defense not being at its best. It was 28th this season. Team finished 17th in yards allowed, so they weren't really the best defense they could be, and that led to the dismissal, or the parting ways, I should say, of Joe Barry as the defensive coordinator. So now it's who they can bring in to kind of light a fire on this defense to say, how can we get this unit back into a championship caliber level to match the offense that has certainly impressed and progressed.
And Brandon, you mentioned while we were talking about the Bucs there, the onus sometimes shifts to the players a little bit. Is that now happening with the defense here in Green Bay? Mike Patton, Joe Barry. Joe Barry didn't miss that tackle in the hole on Christian McCaffrey. There are a lot of first-round draft choices on that side of the ball. Does whoever comes in bring pressure on the players now, too?
I think a little. I don't think it's as much as we're talking about with the Bucs, but there definitely is. They have a responsibility to make those tackles. They have a responsibility to stick to what they are supposed to be doing. Now, that is something that we saw them fail to do time in and time again. And because of that, I think whoever comes in is going to have to demand that these guys stick to what their responsibility is. They can't blow things like missed assignments or lanes and all of that. They have to be in their position. But football is different in the sense that it is a scheme will dictate that, because what if they bring in a guy that doesn't have the scheme for the players they have? So I think that is something that they have to be careful of. So I wouldn't put it all on the players at this point. We'll see who comes in and takes over, and then you can start to adjust to that.
Who's the big question mark? One of the names we're hearing about, at least with some momentum right now, is Christian Parker-Lilly, who has no defensive coordinator assistant experience so far in the NFL. I liked him a lot when he was in Green Bay, a very upbeat young guy, up-and-comer. Could the Packers make that type of move here?
I think it'll be interesting, but I think this is a huge decision for Matt LaFleur, right? You have an offense that is progressing well. You found your quarterback in Jordan Love. Now you just need that cornerstone piece of a good defensive coordinator that'll elevate this defense. Will that come in an unproven defensive coordinator? You know, we've seen it with the Bucs. You know, you hire a first-year head coach, that doesn't work out. I know it's a different sport, but do you want to bring in a guy like Christian Parker, who, again, you know, I think everyone, Tim, you spoke highly of him and did well in the Packers organization. He was a defensive quality control coach back in 2019. Now is with the Denver Broncos in terms of their DBs coach. So he's got experience on the defensive side of the football, but he's never been an actual defensive coordinator. Can you chance it with him, or there are some veteran guys out there who are free agents per se, with Martindale. So do you want an experienced name like that, or do you want a Christian Parker who you can maybe kind of mold, but he'll be a fresh voice and a younger voice for a defensive crew?
He's 32 years old. Preston Smith is basically the same. You're talking about an interesting mix if you do that. Brandon, how important is this hire?
I think it's critical. I think we've seen such a struggle with this defense over the last two coordinators that this time they have to get it right. And I think this will also be a big factor on how Matt LaFleur moves forward as the head coach. I think a lot of responsibility is going to come in who he puts in here and the success that they have, because he's the one that stuck with Joe Barry this past season, and look what it got him. It got him into the playoffs, but they couldn't stop the 49ers when it mattered most. And if you look at the certain games that they lost in their really bad stretch there, they could have been in a completely different position in the playoffs had that defense just been average. So to me, this is something that is huge for Matt LaFleur and huge for this organization.
Strength and conditioning coordinator Chris Gizzi is out as well. Bit of a surprise there. I didn't see that one coming. And the rest of the strength and conditioning coach is in place. The staff is in place. So that's interesting to see what's going to happen there. Maybe some reference to the injuries that some of these players have suffered so far. And a new kicker on the way in to provide a little competition for Anders Carlson. So still some things going on with the Green Bay Packers that we'll be watching as this offseason is now really underway. Jordan Stoltz, I'm not sure there's an offseason for this guy. He trains and then he delivers. Spending the weekend breaking records on the ice in Utah. He's from Kewaskum, 3 new personal bests and a world record in the 1,000-meter race. He's a speed skater, 19-year-old, also broke the American records in the 500, the 1,500. It's a great place to skate there, and he made sure he put up some great times. Say what next?
Did you find yourself channeling your inner Hulk tonight?
I don't get your question.
I've been rated high as a funny man.
Certainly, you're talking about one of the all-time greats.
Want the Hulk voice or Jan's voice?
That's a good question.
Chris is dunking the ball all of a sudden. Dunk last game, dunk this game. I don't know what's going on. I made the 3 this game, last game too. Like, we're just switching roles. Like, I think Chris Middleton is in my body. Actually, no. Chris Middleton's body. He's in my body.
Giannis having a little fun as the Bucs are having a little fun. We did see 2 straight games with Chris Middleton throwing down dunks. 2 straight games and 3 of the last 4. Giannis hitting threes. A little different there. But what's different now, the Brewers' first baseman, Rhys Hoskins, signed to a 2-year deal. He has an option to get out after this coming season. We're 60 days away from opening day for the Brewers, Tim. Is Rhys Hoskins the big deal they needed?
He's a great signing for them, I think. It's a little bit of a calculated risk coming back off injury. They needed a thumper at first base. They have not had a thumper at first base in some time. And he as long as he's healthy, would project that way very well. He seems to be a good clubhouse guy, a good community guy. That's the type of person the Brewers would gamble some big money on.
Lily, do you see this as the only big splash they're going to make before opening day, or with all the guys that are still out there and maybe a question mark at third base, are they bringing somebody else in?
I was going to say third base. I feel like they might make another move there. I don't think Matt Arnold and the Brewers front office is scared at all to kind of make the moves that they would need to get this Brewers team onto a championship track. I think you have to address that position at third base, so I'm curious to see who they do bring in, but I do believe that Rhys Hoskins is going to be that guy at first base for them again, pending he does well coming off this ACL injury. I know he was itching to get back in the postseason last year, but couldn't get it done. So I think the Brewers do make one more big move, though, before spring training begins.
And 17 days until pitchers and catchers report, Tim. Anybody coming in that you see to replace Brandon Woodruff on this staff?
That's a question mark. There's no question, but I do think they have some arms that they can try in there. Kind of like Robert Gasser, actually. You know what I mean? Came over in that trade, that Josh Hader trade, and not much has been mentioned about him. I think he's a guy who could project sooner rather than later, and I think the Brewer team, once again, will be built on pitching. Not the same arsenal of arms, but still that's their philosophy.
And he has been invited to spring training as a non-roster invitee. Well, let's check in on our Instapoll question. You can go to it by scanning this code or going to our website, fox6now.com. Will Doc Rivers lead the Bucks to an NBA title? 57% of you right now believe he will. He gets it all started tomorrow night in Denver. We'll see how that goes. More of your results will be coming up later in the show. And which Wisconsin team is not winning right now? The Admirals, they're riding a 10-game win streak after taking care of the Wolves last night in Chicago. They win 5-0. They are now 10 points clear of second place Texas. The Ads also own the AHL's second highest point total, and they're back home Tuesday against San Diego with a chance to have a perfect January. Pretty exciting for them downtown at Panther Arena. Our high school hotshot is coming up next.
Welcome back. The star athlete won a state championship her freshman year in Alabama, and then she moved back to Wisconsin. After her return, she says her confidence, humility, and experience are helping her lead the Shorewood Greyhounds on the court. Here is this week's Fox 6 High School Hotshot.
I'm Serenity Metcalf. I'm a junior, and I go to Shorewood High School, and I'm on the basketball team. SERINITY. So my older sister, her name is Trinity, and it's TRINITY, so she decided to make mine different but similar. What made me get into basketball is it just was my go-to. I moved from Milwaukee to Alabama my 5th grade year, and ever since then, it just been like my go-to. Like, hit the lab, hit the gym, that's just been my therapy to doing things. And I won a state championship down there my 9th grade year. Came back my 10th grade year, then I just started over. Yes, I'm best points per game, assists, blocks, steals. I still got things I gotta work on myself, so I really don't take those things and run with it. I still got things I gotta handle and work on. So I feel like just keep being that leader that I am to the babies. I know they're gonna feed off of it, so me, keep feeding the ball to them and just being who I am, that'll really get us far. 63 points, I wasn't keeping up with my points that game, but I did know I was on. I hustled, team hustled. All right, we're not losing this game. So then I told the babies, I huddled them up. I'm like, we gotta go get this dub. Yes, afterwards when they mentioned it to me, I was like, woo! Like I didn't even know I scored 63 points, but knowing that I did, it was an honor. I've kind of wanted more like exposure my whole life. I talked to my mom, I said, I think I want to go back to Wisconsin to really just build my legacy up. And we moved back here and we just hit the lab. Came back my junior year and woof, I'm glad to be back. I'm Serenity Metcalf, I'm a junior at Shorewood High School and is the captain on the girls basketball team. And I'm this week's Fox 6 High School Hotshot.
And what an impressive resume. Meanwhile, those 63 points that she scored earlier this year is just 1 point shy of the all-time girls state record. And she's also hoping to continue her basketball career in college. We'll be right back after a quick break.
Appreciate your late night participation in the Fox 6 Blitz Instapoll and some solid belief in Doc Rivers leading the Bucks to an NBA championship.
And it's a big week for the Bucks. Longest road trip of the season as Doc makes his debut in Denver tomorrow. Then they hit Portland, Dallas, and Utah this week.
And here's our college basketball roundup. Marquette at Nova and Georgetown. Here's UWM. And, of course, Wisconsin rounds out the week, guys, hosting number 2 Purdue at home.
And the Badgers really opening some eyes this year in the Big Ten for sure. The Admirals trying to keep that winning streak going Tuesday night on home ice. They're at 10 right now. We appreciate you staying up with us. We'll see you again next Sunday.